Hello. And today we'll be playing NeveN, and we'll begin chapter 8 for Vekad. When I wake up, it's in a place that has become strangely familiar to me. Carrick's hut. A noise on my right startles me, and I feel like my heart is going to explode when I see the moves at his desk, writing in his journal. Why is he? Here you are, already back by my side, and yet you're not the same. It's the second time I nearly die on the spot when I hear the hyena's monotonous voice. What am I doing here, and where's Vekad? Your friend is safe. You'll join him soon. And as for your being here, my son has guided you to me, just as I asked. So he's been keeping an eye on me since I arrived at Frostfang? Oh, not consciously, no. I guided him your way, but he didn't know who I really was until very recently. Just as I expected him to develop his thoughts, the avatar turns to Carrick and peers over his shoulder. So desperate to find something to believe in, the new hope that appears with the presence of the avatars also means that there are many disillusions. It's not the first time I've witnessed what he's capable of with his powers, but I have to say that this time the vision is most realistic. But I mustn't let that distract me. I have a very clear objective in mind. That doesn't explain what you want from me. You were taking the wrong path. In fact, there's no path to your destination. How do you know that? Because I'm also keeping an eye on the one you're looking for. You seem to know absolutely everything about what I'm planning to do. It's frightening. You really want me to find her, don't you? And you want to understand my insistence. It's the least you can do to explain it to me, isn't it? There's no movement on the hyena's face. It's impossible to guess the slightest of his intentions. Let's just say I'm curious. That's not an answer. Still is more than you can afford to ask. What if I turn on my heels and refuse to go see her? Usually in a negotiation, it's the one with the upper hand who imposes conditions, not the one desperately trying to get something. Yeah, and what are your conditions? I don't have any, except that you do what you set out to do. And if I don't, you've met a cannibal cult, and you already think you discovered all the horrors of this world. Believe me, the worst can still happen. So we're down to threats. Let's call it a piece of friendly advice instead. I have my conditions too. This doesn't seem to annoy or amuse the hyena. No sign that I'm confusing him, that what I'm saying has any effect on him. I'm listening. I want to understand why you're so persistent. I'd just like to give you another perspective of what the gods are and what they do to us, and I'm sure that as far as they're concerned, Vanessa's story will inspire you. And what do you know about them? Strangely enough, not much for someone my age. I look him up and down, and my puzzled expression must be visible as I observe what is a perfectly healthy hyena right in front of me. Believe me, I'm much older than you think. Considering the advanced age of the priest who accompanied me, there is indeed something wrong. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here for Vekad. So, what should I do now? I suddenly feel as if I've been transported at full speed to another location, an endless forest with a mountain peak that's strangely familiar to me. Just Avatar is no longer by my side, yet I can hear his voice echoing in my mind. This place is dangerous, so don't underestimate it. Good luck to you. And turning my head, I see Vekad at my side, looking just as confused as I am. Eric, you're okay. I think so, yes. How are you? Yeah, I was asleep, and now I'm here. He lifts his gaze to the peak for a moment, and then shakes his head, watching me with a hesitant look. I think it's the Fang. He's right, it's exactly the same mountain, but without the city that should be built on it. No walls, no castle, nothing but a big forest. The capital is supposed to be ancient, isn't it? No idea, I don't know shit about history. Even trying to recall the legends that were instilled in me, I can think of pretty few that go back to the beginnings of the city's creation, let alone before it existed. But just as I'm wondering what's happening to us, I spot a line of silhouettes among the trees, and they're all heading for the peak. Vekad seems to have spotted them too. He starts walking towards them while camped on his legs before addressing me in a hushed voice. You think we're supposed to follow them? I don't quite see what else we're expected to do. The Avatar didn't tell me anything specific about what we're supposed to do here. The hunter raised his eyebrows, questioning me with his eyes. You spoke with him. A little, didn't you? Nah, I told you. I went straight from bed to here. Well, whatever he told you, be careful. He'd have talked in my presence if he didn't have nothing to hide. It remains to be seen what he might be hiding, if Vekad is right. As we get closer, I realize that all the silhouettes are wearing blue hooded cloaks on their backs. However, as we follow, this strange procession, the road starts to get long. The wait starts to get long, so I try to find something to talk about that might shed some light on what's happening. Say, about the caravan, do you know why you would have attacked it? Nah, I really don't know. Well, for a while, I was trying to convince myself it was to protect you from the Vekadians because I figured they'd be interested in your brand. I know it's weird to say, but that's how I felt inside when it happened, I guess, even though I had no control over any of it. And another part of me thinks it's for darker reasons, like it was a plan that caused chaos. A plan from whom? No idea is what I feel. I don't have anything more concrete than that. Silence falls again, and finally we watch a glimpse in the distance of what appears to be a huge wooden structure that far exceeds the trees around it. And the closer we get, the more I understand what I'm seeing. And some kind of statue formed for wooden logs, and this one represents a herbivore or something like that. And the closer we get, the more I feel a sense of warmth that strikes me in this usually so cold environment. What the fuck are they doing here? When we will finally get a glimpse of the base of the structure, we see a good 100 Africans in blue capes surrounding the base, which has been filled with straw. The whole thing is starting to catch fire, and at first they seem to be warming themselves around it, but right before our eyes, some of them are stepping forward until they willingly enter the flames, and their screams are rising high in the sky. By all the gods, those who remain around the base don't seem to react, content to warm themselves by the fire fed by the bodies of their comrades. And from the flames the corpses rise, their melted flesh revealing here and there their skeletons as they walk slowly toward a small wooden hut I've only just noticed. What the fuck is going on, Eric? It's a bad dream, huh? I'm asking myself the same question. Is this real? I think so. What the Avatar test told me was enough to make me believe that what I'm seeing right now is real too. Slowly, The walking corpses, whose fur is still being devoured by the flames, kneel down to form a circle around the hut, and I can hear their pleas from here, as if carried by the wind. Let us die. Set us free. Please, mercy. And a new voice, the voice of a woman, echoes through the valley, singing the thunder like lightning. Enough, go away. A shockwave shakes the air around the hut, and skeletons as well as the living are swept up by it, turned to dust by the impact. Even being far away, I can feel the wind sweeping moderately through the trees around us, making the snow fall and nearly knocking me off my paws. Fortunately, Vekad grabs me by the arm and pulls me against him as he also tries to make sense of what's happening. But as I recover from my emotions, I suddenly feel like being lost. Then the wood of the statue creaks and twists as flames rise to its head, fighting up two blazing eyes that are watching us. The structure's head slowly turns towards us, and a distorted voice echoes in our minds. You don't belong here. I'm petrified under the dreadful stare, but fortunately the stab pulls me along with him and sags me back into consciousness. Run, but my legs won't, and Vekad doesn't seem to be able to move either. Then we walk, not in the opposite direction to the burning statue, no, we go straight towards it. No matter how hard I try to get away, my body won't respond. And the closer we get, the more I feel the dangerous heat, while the fire seems to be calling me to it. I can't resist. I can't even manage to speak anymore, nor to scream. Neither can I turn my head towards Vekad to give him one last look. But we go around the statue towards the little house, and once we're in front of the door, it opens of its own accord as the force that drives us makes us enter. And so we find ourselves face to face with an ear surrounded by the most basic furnishings. When I raise my gaze to our host, she glares at us, squinting her eyes, then takes on an imperious air. Why do you think I'd help you? How does she? Because I can read your mind. As I think of my next sentence, she sweeps the air with her hand. I want nothing to do with the one who sent you here. Listen, I know. I barely have time to think before my mind flies out on the spot as I let my anger get the better of me. Pretend you're listening to us, damn it. I can't organize my thoughts if you cut off every time. She doesn't answer this time. Her glance wanders outwards, and when I follow it, I can't help stuttering when I see the skeleton of an African watching us through the window with its empty eye sockets. The evil's trembling voice reaches my ears again as she steps forward to close the blinds. You awaken terrible things by your mere presence. It wasn't your attention, I know, it's his fault. For a moment I think she's talking about Vekad, but then I remember she was talking about the one who sent us here. Do you know the avatar attests? See, suddenly her tone changes and I almost feel like I'm reading the rays of her face. We. Then again, she softens and continues as if nothing had happened. I knew him once upon a time. If you read my mind, then you know I don't trust him any more than you do. It's not the first time a desperate act has driven an African to do something they don't want to do. For a moment, her gaze turns to Vekad, who seems as lost as I am. It's rare for three avatars to end up in the same place. Coincidence has nothing to do with it. 3 avatars. You're inhabited by Kelvin's avatar, and I'm Brigit, Manessa's avatar. Brigit, the Brigit? The ear's gaze turns back to me when I think that. Your stories about me don't represent reality, whatever you've heard. A cackling voice echoes from the back of the hut as I see a trapdoor in the floor slowly lifting. Whatever you heard, it doesn't come close to matching the terrible truth. The skeleton I saw earlier pulls itself out of the cellar with a creak of its bones, and I try to recoil, but can't move. What the fuck? I turn my gaze to Brigit in the hope of seeing some reaction, but she simply speaks coldly to the creature. Get out of here, Azalea. If only I could, I can't help being alert, even seeing the weary look on the sheep's face as he crashed into a dusty armchair despite the presence of corpse in the room. Why does nothing make sense here? The tone of the skeleton of what I think is also an ear is strangely cheerful. Oh, but it does. It makes perfect sense to her. You're my dream, and my dream, where I've decided to exile myself for good to escape the people who want to exploit my powers. To try and escape her own regrets, rather. She doesn't like to think about it, but we're here to remind her. Shut up! The whole house creaks, then cracks form in the wood. You're nothing but that monster's creation. He made you to torment me. I'm sure of it. Then once again the trapdoor opens and another skeleton, this time of what is clearly a horse, emerges from the cellar. I think it's more of a mare, given the wispy, mournful voice that reaches my ears. I don't like being here. I don't like being down there. It's cold and scary. That's very true. That's very true, Gearleg. There's a whole bunch of bodies in that closet, figuratively and literally. Vekad looked as confused as I do when I looked at him, but Brigit closes her eyes and silvers slightly. I can't. Maybe you explain it to them. They understand. Nobody can understand. The evil skeleton turns to me and takes my hand, which doesn't fail to make me shudder internally for lack of being able to do so externally. It's a story about love. Then she turns her empty eye sockets towards Vekad in betrayal. Shut up, Azalea. If anyone's going to tell this story, it's me. I'm sorry, but I don't quite see what this has to do with what I'm here for. You understand soon enough. The skeletons settle in, and I notice they're assuming the same pose as Brigit as she lets her head tilt back. I use my powers to establish a peaceful community on this peak. I saw a bright future for those I call my children. Azalea lets out a mocking chuckle before cutting Brigit off. Your servants, yes. That's not true. I love you, in my own way. In my domain, the different clans of what you would later call phosphate managed to get along. There was no war, no bloodshed, because they respected me. Because they feared you. Maybe so, but we were there to heal them of their ills, and they were also grateful for that. With my brand, coupled with the brands of Moriani we had here, we could find answers to most of their problems. Even if it meant erasing their minds so that they forgot even their most basic emotions. If only it had stopped there. I see Brigit look away at this comment, then resumes her story with a tremor to her voice. One day a stranger of a species I had never seen before appeared at our gates. He said his name was answer, and he came from distant lands to the south of our snowy lands. Despite our initial mistrust, he knew how to find the right words. Plus, he had a peculiarity, a brand that no one else bore like mine, but differed. Not only was he able to dive into Africans' dreams, he could also talk to the dead. The Avatar test. You understand why I wish to share this story with you now. There's no coincidence in any of this. I quickly fell in love with him, but we both knew that something terrible and inescapable would separate us. Death. His son told me that some beliefs referred to a connection between dreams and the mind could. His son told me that some beliefs referred to a connection between dreams and the mind, but I didn't think it was that literal. Oh, it was once, but I'll get there. Driven by more love for him, and thanks to his knowledge, I sought to transcend my mortal condition so that I could follow him, to love him as he was meant to be loved. And I succeeded. He still tried to avoid telling everything. There's nothing more to say. A muffled wave trembles in the skeleton's voice, despite the fact that she's been cheerful so far. Liar. The other two skeletons began to stare at her before speaking in a commanding tone. Tell him. Everything. I can't. Don't force me. All these words, Azalea rises and places her skeletal hand on Brigit's shoulder. At first she recoils, but she then straightens in her chair as the other ear's bony fingers make contact with her. To achieve her ends, she began experimenting first in the outside villages, then on her followers. It took decades, and the closer her death approached, the less hesitant she became to use extreme methods. At first, the clans weren't aware of the disappearances. She was capturing Africans no one wanted. But among her close circle, dissension began to emerge. So to silence these dissenting voices, she used the excuse that the gods were angry and demanding sacrifices. And to our surprise, those who disagreed with her were the first to offer themselves for the task. We didn't know it then, but she was capable of taking control of the mind, and through it, the body. She made us believe they were volunteers and drove them to walk straight into the flames. But inside they were there, prisoners of their own mind. They could feel the pain, but she wouldn't even let them scream. She forced them to stand silently in place until they died. I sacrificed them. Tears stream from Brigit's eyes, but she keeps her proud air as she seems to struggle inwardly. Until Azalea removes her hand from her shoulder, leaving Manasseh's avatar with a blank look on her face as she wipes away her tears. A whole bunch of thoughts run through my head, and fear even starts to rise in me again, knowing who I'm dealing with. Then I remember that she's able to read minds, so I try to erase these thoughts without really succeeding. What done's done. I can't change the past. Besides, I'm not the only one in this room who's committed such acts. Her gaze darts to Vekad, and he blinks questioningly as he still tries to figure out what's going on. I still don't see what we've got to do with it. I'm here to get fixed, not to. Silence. I'm not finished yet. This time it's Gilead who approaches slyly before placing her hand on Brigit's other shoulder. And again she straightens up, but this time she's displaying a sorrowful expression. She's achieved her goal. After saddening the minds of hundreds of Africans, she eventually found a cure to death. So she invited the one she considered her daughter, a sheep just like her, to join her in private. Her gaze turned slowly and painfully towards Azalea, as if forced to do so by unseen hands. Her spirit seeped into mine. Her spirit seeped into mine. She crushed all that was me. She erased her mind in order to enter her body and abandon her own. The two became one after that. Obviously, officially, she made it look like Azalea was a new wizard, thus she appointed her as successor. And at first, there was discontent until she demonstrated her powers. But what she hadn't foreseen was that even by totally erasing Azalea, she hadn't managed to erase her idea of her. Her powers mixed with the regret of her action brought me back to life in her mind, and distorted life full of resentment, but I'm here and I'll stay here for the rest of her days, gnawing away at her every thought. And by the same process, she stole dozens of lives to achieve her goal of following the one she loved. As with Azalea, she took control of my body, and for centuries she lived under the name of Brigit, all the while becoming even more different, her psyche inhabited by ghosts that her powers made more real than she could have ever imagined. Gillig then steps back and lets out a tearless sob, while Brigit gives her an apologetic look. But she doesn't seem to have the words to express her regrets. And Tess, Arthur, in this whole thing, what's become of him? We loved each other for a long time, whatever my incarnation, but he ended up asking for something I couldn't and wouldn't give him. So he walked away. He left me behind and took revenge for my refusal to help him by flooding my dreams with these nightmarish creatures. She refuses to see us as anything other than Arthur's creations. What she doesn't understand is that this is precisely why we're still by her side. And you don't want to let him have the last word by helping us, is that it? I refuse to be yet another tool in his machinations. But you can see that I'm here out of love too. I'm here to save the one I care about the most. Vekad manages to smile at me with a certain tenderness as I watch him while uttering these words. He's good at exploiting others' emotions, I'm aware of it, but sometimes the best thing to do is to refuse to follow the path he offers us. See where that got me? I don't intend to walk away from my quest. And I'm truly sorry about that, but I can't satisfy his wishes. This time I'm doing my best to think about that horrible day that haunts me. The hunt in the forest, those mauled, devoured corpses and carracks. Even though it cost me and I tremble at the thoughts, I flood my mind the worst horrors that I've ever seen in my life, and finally I focus on the Africans throwing themselves into the fire that was feeding the wooden statue. Brigit prostrates herself in her chair as she's forced to see them too, to relive that moment. Stop! Stop! Faced with the truth again, she begins to cry, forget and struggles to utter these few words between sobs. I've already paid. Not. Enough. The cries fall silent, and Brigit is seized by another sudden change of mood as she straightens up, brushing away her tears once more with a sweep of her arm. You think you want me to save your friend, but you don't know the price you'll both have to pay. No price will be high enough to pay if I can finally know who I am. And no price is heavy enough for me to help him fulfill his true self. After a reflection that seems to take hours, the Erie rises and lays a hand on the stag. He has no choice but to allow it. He's like me, but different, a fractured mind, difficult to penetrate, but not impossible. I won't be able to get in alone. Whoever's inside him doesn't want me to, and he has the power to keep me out. I'll have to send someone he trusts. Before I even volunteer, she puts her hand on my forehead, and I feel myself leaving my body. I'm not sure what's happening to me, but intense heat hits me, so much so that I feel like I'm going to die from it. But the body I'm inhabiting at the moment, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be affected by this temperature all that much. When I open my eyes, an edifice built of oranges stone faces me. It's an architecture that's unfamiliar to me, yet I have the profound impression that I know this place. Then, as my gaze sweeps over the landscape, I realize that I'm surrounded by vegetation I've never seen in my life, and that the sky has never been so blue. A whole host of unfamiliar smells assail me, those of the plants, but others again carried by the warm wind whipping across my face. As I try to understand what's happening to me, thoughts that aren't mine invade my mind. I feel pride, the pride of having been accepted into this place. Then my body starts moving on its own while I'm following birds of all sorts of species. I'm in Vekad. Did they manage to capture me? No, that's impossible. My gaze goes down, then I see that I have talons and feathers too. Did Brigit send me into someone else's mind? But for what purpose? My thoughts take up less and less space against those of the body I inhabit as I enter the building. I can't wait to explore these places to finally prove myself worthy. Animal heads are mounted on the walls, and I wonder if these belong to real monsters or if they are just particularly large. Then the voice of the Grand Master echoes in my mind. Your quarters are in the south wing. Rest up. You'll be hunting tomorrow. My mind clouds for a moment, and when I am again aware of what is happening to me, a terrible sorrow strikes me. They've caught him. The very reason for our order's existence, the purpose for which I enlisted here, they capture him. And I wasn't even there to help him. I'm not even allowed to see the creature. They say it's too dangerous for me. And yet whole groups of priests and scientists are invited to study it. The rumor is that they want to replicate what this monster is capable of doing, that they want to use it as a weapon. Idiots. They don't understand what we have to destroy this. They don't understand that we have to destroy this thing, not create more of it, and the master lets them. We were supposed to act in secret, but rumors even say that the God King is due to visit us soon. Her ways, no, my ways is probable, and yet I must maintain absolute calm on the surface. I can't afford to doubt, not in front of them. Again, the spirit of the one I inhabit seems to fade, and when I return to this body, I feel I'm not exactly at the moment I was before. Fire everywhere. My gaze falls on the corpses that line the floor of what has become my home. They were my comrades, and now they've all been slaughtered. The monster fled. He deliberately set fire to the archives. I saw it. He's trying to cover his tracks. This thing is a lot smarter than he lets on. With several of the hunters who survived the attack, we're organizing ourselves to hunt it down. It's out of the question to keep it alive this time, especially not out there. The next thing I know, I'm in the desert. My gaze turned to the stars. It's breathtaking. In the distance, the jungles of Kazal loom, forming a natural bulwark against the sands of our lands. Then my gaze drops to the corpses of my comrades and that of the beasts. It was I who killed them, who delivered the final blow. Normally, I gloat at the thought of receiving the glory his death represents, but I know what he's capable of. I know he doesn't die so easily. So with a trembling hand, I bring my knife to my throat with one last gulp. I know I have to end it now, but I can't. My own body is fighting to prevent me from doing so. Their voice reaches me. Well, Birdie, did you fall out of your nest? A cheetah standing in front of me, watching me with an amused expression. This Vekadian is approximate. He has an accent I recognize well, the one from the lands of Khazal that are close to ours. With a sweep of his sword, he strikes my dagger, and I stare at him in awe as my body refuses to move. Let me help you with that. No, the monster will. The Khazalian forces the tip of his sword into my beak, and I feel the blade slide slowly down my throat, tearing me open from the inside. And there's nothing I can do. I stand there as he coldly kills me with a satisfied look. I'll see you on the other side. Then I'm me again. I'm Eric. In the face of what I've just seen, I can't help but tremble as I observe my surroundings. There's nothing but darkness as a stifling dampness. Stifling dampness. It's like being stuck in a well, squeezed by the stone it's made of. And the cheetah's voice rang in my ears, even though I can't see him. Another one. We're starting to get crowded in here. I'm here for Vekad. I don't want any trouble. His two feline eyes glow in the darkness and give me a long, hard stare. Then his fangs shine through the gloom. Oh, it's you. It's not the first time we've met, if you're not entirely aware of it. You were in my vision just now. Oh no, it was long before that. We almost had a romantic moment, you and I. The image of Vekad forcibly grabbing me comes back to me, and a gagging feeling takes hold of me as I feel the waves rising within me. Son of a... Just. I avoid that, if I were you, especially here. His laughter echoes all around me, and I understand that we are beginning to become one. I'm the one who pushed your friend to attack that caravan, you know? Obviously, it was easy to make him believe it was a good idea, that it was to protect you from Vekad, but I simply needed to keep that pesky Sibby busy elsewhere. What exactly is he trying to do by telling me this? The jungle I glimpse through the eyes of the body I previously inhabited suddenly surrounds me. A whole bunch of fragrant flowers face me, and for a moment I'm almost tempted to get carried away by their scent. Abruptly, birds with multicolored feathers fly between the trees. I have an irrepressible urge to kill him and burn this whole jungle down. While I used to find pleasure in seeing beauty in such a view, I now feel disgust, but it doesn't come from me. Then it starts to rain. This isn't water, it's blood. Panic seizes me, but once again there's nothing I can do to escape what's happening to me. The one I now inhabit raises his gaze to the sky and opens his arms to welcome this rain, letting it dye his fur scarlet red. I'm pretty sure he chose me because I was a hunter in my own way. He then sends me visions of the murders he's perpetrated down to the last detail, and I struggle to try and escape these thoughts. Stalking animals is a boar, but Africans now, that's exciting. I can feel the terror that has taken hold of each of his victims, their vulnerability, and I hear their cries, their pleas. He takes pleasure in feeling that. I can see it in his thoughts. This being disgusts me. He deserves to. I'll show you every life I've taken. You'll feel their hearts pounding, their pulses slowing, and you'll catch a glimpse of the relief in their eyes once I was done with them. No, please, I don't want to see that. But I'm not in control of my thoughts here. I'm him. I can only see what he wants to show me. Then a cavernous voice breaks the visions that were beginning to creep into my mind. Enough! I've killed you once, and I'll enjoy doing it again. My vision blurs, and the next thing I know, his body, is being carried away by an angry mob. He's being beaten, every one of his bones broken with sticks. I can feel his suffering, but somehow I welcome it with a starting satisfaction. He deserves it. When at last the villagers are done with him, they drag him into the swamps and throw him to a huge crocodile, and the latter tears him apart with a few bites. Then the cheetah spirit finally fades and I escape his wickedness. My breath is jerky, my heart gripped by fear and disgust at having shared even for a moment the thoughts of this monster. And somewhere I wonder if Vekad didn't go through this exact experience. However, before I even manage to question what's happening to me, I feel myself transported back into another body. This time, when I finally become aware of my surroundings, I find myself back in the jungle. In front of me is a child no more than 10 years old, a deer whose clothes are half torn. He looks straight at me and trembles with fear as I shred a crocodile between my huge fangs. In the next moment, I feel myself being ripped from his body, and I can see that he is a crocodile as well, but this one is in between the animal and the African. Hunchback, gigantic proportions, and some sort of ferocity in the eyes. And the same voice that interrupted the cheetah echoes in my mind with a kind of weariness. These memories are mine. Who are you? Watch and learn. Once again, time distorts itself, and the child's clothes appear to have worn off for wandering through the jungle. Meanwhile, the huge crocodile is crouching in front of the deer, is using a stick to draw the childlike depiction of a house in the dirt. Home. I have to go back to my home. The scaly beast's gaze shifts from the drawing to the child in utter confusion before he lets out a growl as if trying to express something, yet failing to do so. Faced with the crocodile's apprehension, the young deer lets out a long sigh of exasperation before throwing the stick into the thicket. Then he prostrates himself in the corner of a makeshift hut and begins to sob. The crocodile watches him for a moment, and I can read the sorrow in his eyes. So he fetches a stick in his turn and traces shapes in the earth, even though they don't seem to represent anything. Then he lifts a hopeful gaze at the child, who cries harder. I want to find Mom and Dad. This time the scaly beast doesn't seem to know what to do for several seconds. Then in an all-African gesture, he simply stands beside the deer and rests his hand against his back. I feel like time is dilating once again as I watch the shared lives of these two Africans flash by. The deer tries to teach the crocodile to speak. Without much success, the crocodile teaches the child to hunt. My vision blurs, then I find myself standing in front of the child, who has slightly grown and is holding an improvised spear between his hands. The people from the village approach again. Don't know what they're after, but you have to watch yourself. The way he talks, I think I'm hearing Vekad. If it is him, he's never told me about any of this. Does he even remember? After listening to the child, the crocodile tilts his head and lets out a reptilian hiss before growling as he sprawls to the ground. You're not like them. You know how they react to that. The next memory brings me back in front of the cabin, which has practically become a proper house over time. In front of me, the crocodile lies with a spear embedded in his leg, and the stag, panic, takes care of him as best he can by applying herbs to his wound. Don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll be all right. It's nothing hasty. In his words, I hear that the child is trying to convince himself more than the creature. The word is clearly visible on his face. His hand then slides to the crocodile as he squeezes it with all his might, and the scaly beast squeezes his fingers in turn with a sigh. Oh. Hearing this word, the deer's face lights up and he has to fight not to cry as he pulls the crocodile's hand to hold it close to his chest. Home. My heart warms at the sight, and I must admit I needed it after what I went through in the cheetah's mind. But Saturday, I find myself outside the hut again in the jungle. Corpses are scattered everywhere, and for a moment I feel as if I'm back doing Carrot's hunt. And the crocodile's in the middle of this carnage, devouring an African that's still alive by the sounds of it. Stop! Not far away, the young deer holds his spear, trembling as he screams at the top of his lungs, with pain in his face. Please stop! The crocodile turns slowly, and I catch a glimpse of the shreds of flesh trapped between his fangs, while viciousness one would lend to a feral beast signs in his eyes. The next moment he screams to charge the deer. He seems to charge the deer, then immediately stops and begins to dig his claws into his own throat. Kill me. Faced with these words, the stag appears unsure of what to do and stands his spear in the creature's direction while a whole host of conflicting emotions run through him. Stop it. Stop hurting yourself, please. The beast stops again before resuming his charge and then impales his own throat straight on the deer's spear. The stag drops his weapon and trembles before falling to his knees at the same time as the crocodile falls to the ground. Then he takes him in his arms as he watches him die. Oh, don't leave me. Please, Dad, don't leave me. At the sound of the child's cries, I find myself back in the darkness. Then the crocodile's voice reaches me, except that this time his words are much more articulate. I'm glad I managed to teach him to hunt. That was about the only thing I was good at. Looking around, I managed to catch a glimpse of his eyes piercing the darkness as he continues. I thought the hardest thing would be to die and leave him out there alone, until I learned what fading into oblivion meant. Was that Vekad? Indeed, he lost those memories, following that, but that's what eventually led him to flee to Phosphine. And you were with him all the way? I was, but I've only really been aware since all the avatars came together. I was trying to sleep, trying not to see. It was too painful. If it helps, he's still a good hunter as ever. I doubt he's forgotten all about you. That's what I hope, deep down. Yet seeing him in this state pains me. But I'd like to ask you something, if you don't mind. Yes, of course. What can I do for you? As you've seen, I didn't have time to develop my feelings because of my nature, and I learned even less how to express them. It was only recently that I realized it was pride I felt towards this child, the one you call Vekad. So please tell him what I never had a chance to tell him. I want him to know that I'm proud of what he's become, that I'm glad I got to share his life, even if it felt far too short for me. I can see he's struggling not to cry, and I too have a jolt in my heart as I do my best to answer him without sobbing. I'll tell him, I promise. With those last words, with what little I could see of the crocodile disappeared to be replaced by something I've seen before. A stoat. It's for me, you hear, isn't it? His delicate voice echoes playfully in my head as I move in for a closer look. Honestly, I don't know. The witch who sent you here would probably have annihilated me by now, if that was your intention anyway. I guess I can just ask you to leave Vekad's mind. If it were that easy, I'd have done it myself. It's not exactly the most stable body I've ever had to inhabit. So what? I guess we can find some kind of middle ground. I can't help sighing as weariness washes over me. what's this going to ask me now? I hope you don't want my body. No, I meant that my brand was driving me to covet yours, but let's just say Vekad's feelings got in the way. No, I like to coexist with Vekad. Hunting from time to time does me the world good. Before I accept anything, I need to understand what you are. I've seen things in there, and they don't sit well with me at all. When an animal responds to me, it's with a degree of disgust in its voice. They don't please me anymore, but that's the way things are. So what? You don't have the choice of which people are living in your head? Not really. The frozen landscape I know so well appears around me as it settles in the hollow of a dead tree. I was but a mere animal when my brand appeared on my body. My survival was all that mattered as an animal, and I didn't really think about tomorrow, but the intelligence provided by the brand made me fully aware of the long-term danger. I was facing what you might call an existential crisis. My need to survive was now coupled with a desire to be more than prey. My nature does what nature does. I live well as a stoat, but old age caught up with me, and with it, predators ready to pounce on a weaker critter. An average animal would have accepted his fate. It would simply have died, but the raising will to live that many to live my but the raising will to live that my newfound intelligence had given me manifested itself through my powers, and I parasitized the wolf that had devoured me. I had become the predator. I controlled it from the inside, and it had no way of resisting me. A strange pride rings in the little animal's voice as he raises his head as high as he can. That's how Vekad ended up with you in his head then. Indeed, this power allowed me to grow stronger and stronger for a time. Well, as a wolf, I was killed by a bear, then as a bear by a hunter. And that's when my trouble started. What I didn't understand about my brain was that I inherited the whole being. I was parasitizing, not just its body. That wasn't a problem as long as it was an animal, but it became one when I started inhabiting more self-conscious creatures. I accumulated the dreams, but also the fears, the most intimate weaknesses of my killers, and I didn't realize it at first. Then they overwhelmed me. They began to guide my actions more than I guided myself. I was losing control. My mistakes piled up. Then they led me to unknown horizons. Suddenly, the intelligence of the Anthrakins may be smarter, but also unstable, and the spirits within me began to clash in a perpetual hunt to gain the upper hand. Is that why Vekad had these mood swings? It's simply the influence of the different lives within me. The most recent one often have the most weight in my actions, and one of them is the killer. I didn't choose to welcome him into me, but yes, some of the hunters in me don't just hunt animals. Some are fanatics, others are warriors, born killers either way. But the ones who gave me the most trouble were the ones who saw compassion for their prey. Is that what happened with Vekad and that crocodile? And between Vekad and you, too, it's hard for the spirits who wish to kill you to get him to do so, so they look for ways to make the suggestion more appealing to their hosts. And how do I know that's not what you want? To kill you? Well, as I told you, it's my nature to seek ever greater strength, and your brand is enticing indeed, but I wouldn't say it's my will. It's just that I can't help it. However, if you promise my survival, I'm sure Brigit could use her powers to calm my desires to destroy the more unstable spirits within me. Do you and C know each other? You talk about her as if you do. She doesn't know me, but I do. I've spent time stalking both her and Elsa. I was even one of the few who knew her little secret. Everybody she ever possessed reeked of her. And what can you tell me about Aster? Not much except that I've tried to kill him many times before and never succeeded, but he couldn't beat me either. I think he knew what it meant if he killed me. He always been a smart lad. Look, I don't want to make the decision lightly. I want to know what it could mean for Vekad if I accept. He'll be able to live normally without any of the fits he's had up to now, and don't worry about your privacy. I know how to close my mind when necessary. I need a guarantee. Let Brigit into your mind. She'll be able to tell you if you're lying or not. Whenever you take my deal, she'll have to enter anyway, so Brigit's voice thunders through my mind as if it's been there all along. He's telling the truth. I feel like I'm making a huge mistake, and I'd like to have it clear in my heart that I'm not falling into a trap. Can you see if he's thinking of other solutions? Or the one where I annihilate him, but that will destroy part of Vekad's mind with him. A true parasite indeed. I guess I have no choice. You won't regret it, I promise. Suddenly I find myself back in Brigit's cottage as she collapses into her armchair as I realize that the skeletons have disappeared. On the floor, Vekad is lying on the ground and sobbing, so I hurry to his side, hoping that nothing has happened to him. Vekad! His tear-filled gaze turns to me as he pulls me against him in a hug that's more than welcome. I killed him. While holding him tightly against me, I rest my muzzle on his, hoping to reassure him. You had no choice. He wasn't himself anymore. He saved me. I lost my parents in this fucking jungle, and he was there for me. Seeing the sad consistent state breaks my heart, but deep down I think the fact that he's feeling these emotions proves that he's finally himself. And I have to be there for him. I talked to him, you know. He told me he's very proud of what you've become. I know. The ear sold me the everything. I realized I had begun to forget Brigit's presence as I glanced in her direction. She looks away with a sigh, and I try to give her a grateful smile despite everything I know about her. Thank you. Go away, now that you've got what you wanted. After helping Vekad to his shoes, he takes my hand in his and turns to our host. What will you do now? You know the avatars are hunting each other out there. Tess has forced my hand to take part in our little avatar meeting, but that's as far as it goes for me. I've done enough harm. I'd rather wither away in peace and let this world forget me forever. I can't help but feel a twinge of sadness, especially as this could be a most interesting tale to tell. No, this story must die with me. I forgot she could read my mind. It's better this way. The ghosts of the past shouldn't haunt me. The ghosts of the past shouldn't haunt anyone but me. If that's what you want. But how are we supposed to get out of here? The door opens of its own accord, and Brigit chases us away with a wave of her hand. He'll find you soon enough. Without further ado, I can feel my body moving on its own as she moves us forward to where we arrived in the first place. There I will gain control of my limbs and take the opportunity to lie down against a tree with alongside where Vekad joins me in an embrace. I'm sorry you had to go through all this for me. If I had known. Don't apologize. I saw things I never thought I'd see in there, good and bad, but I did it to help you get better. If it worked, it was worth the cost. Besides, I never roamed Vekad or Kazal, and you gave me the opportunity to travel a bit. It was lovely. I would have loved to see more of it if it wasn't so dangerous out there. He gives me a sad smile, and I returned it before placing a kiss on his muzzle. How are you feeling? It's tough, but I feel like I'm at peace inside for once. Do you think you're someone different? Not really. He grimaces and seems to reflect for a moment before continuing. I think the hunting and all that, it didn't come from Calathon, but from my adopted father. That's really who I am. My eyelids grow heavy, and I try to answer Vekad as much as I can between a few yawns. As long as you feel comfortable with it, you can you can be whoever you want. No avatar, no god can dictate your nature. Then sleep takes me away. The next thing I know, I'm facing Tessa's avatar again, and the hyena's mind seems to be elsewhere. I wonder if Arthur is a name I haven't carried for a long time, and it was the first one I've had either. They had a lot to say, both the avatar of Calathon and Brigit. Is all true? From their point of view, it's true, yes. That's when I realized he's watching the dead pass by, still with the same lack of expression. It's a good thing you got to meet them. They rarely get a chance to talk to anyone but those who haunt them. Suffice to say, they're not the most pleasant conversations. But why are you doing this to Brigit? What do you mean? She told me you were torturing her by sending her these dead spirits. Our past love haunts her mind, but I do nothing to remind myself of her. No, if I'm responsible for anything, it's for giving her hope that I was capable of love. The rest of her torment is just a prison see herself unconsciously created to punish the excesses of her multiple lives. And you can't help her get out of it? And deprive her of a lesson she'll never forget? Come on, that's not my role. Surely you've seen what she's capable of and what she's done to be able to stay by my side. You should understand that her situation is totally undeserved. I can't help shaking my head. Who deserves to be tormented by their own mind for the rest of their lives? As I think my disagreement was obvious, when Hyena adds, I think you misunderstand my place. In this situation, I'm the tormented, not the tormentor. What do you mean? Imagine not only being able to receive all the regrets of the living and the dead, but more importantly, being perpetually forced to witness them and not being able to escape these visions. There was a time when I thought my own delusions would be the hardest to bear, and I've accumulated quite a few, believe me, but I also had the opportunity to correct them bit by bit. No, in truth, my punishment is much more vicious. I'm condemned to watch Africans fail, to see them repeat the same mistakes to such an extent that it's become more painful than any of my own experiences. Unconfessed loves, the regrets of a child who didn't have the courage to say everything he wished to his dying father, wars declared over a simple diplomatic misunderstanding. I do believe this is the first time I've seen emotion appear on Arthur's face as he wearily adds, the only promise I can give the Africans is an end to their regrets. I'll be the last to hear them and keep them with me forever. After all I've been through, I find it hard to feel sorry for him, but it sounds like he has his own regrets to carry and they weigh heavy on him. I imagine you have a grudge against the gods too. Is that what you wanted to convey to me by having me meet the other avatars? Oh no, I'm a long way from that. Maybe there was a time when I wanted to go to war with them to make them regret branding me. But today I only wish for what I've been denied until now. You embrace her death. Is that what you asked Brigit? What she couldn't give you? Indeed. If you're still here, I imagine it's not something easy for you to get. It's impossible, but I've been working on a solution to that for the last 2 centuries. Why do you want to die? Why do you want to die? There's so much to live for. I've seen enough of this world. I've been a hero, a tyrant, a god. I've lived everything there is to live. I can tell you that no one is meant to live this long. No one should have to live this long. A heavy silence slowly settles in as the avatar seems lost in thought. Maybe I can learn a little more. Somehow understand you on a lesser level. My brand has had a kind of impact on my life, really in a positive way. That's the usual path of an avatar. Aster pauses as he turns his sullen gaze back to me. You've never wondered why it's called a brand, have you? Some will call these powers a gift, a mark, or even a blessing, but the word we use most is brand. I have to admit, I never thought much of it. The first avatars with the intelligence to truly begin to understand their powers managed to attain important positions in several civilizations centuries and centuries ago. That's why even today peoples who are usually unable to agree on anything share the same deities. They represent our own beliefs. And you were among the first avatars. I was there before I was even aware of what existence was. But that's not what I'm getting at. What I want you to understand is that we had the power. And we all believe that the gods had applied their fiery poker to brand us like cattle. We knew that these brands represent an ordeal, a heavy tribulation, and we tried to convey this message to our peoples. But they weren't avatars. They didn't have the same burden to bear. So, this word has become positive in the ears of most Africans today, where we used to experience it as a curse, adding people's incomprehension to the weight on our shoulders. And time has done its work. It has erased us from history and our ideas with it. At best, we're remembered as minor deities eradicated by the true gods. At worst, we disappear forever. Somewhere deep inside me, the optimist I am, that I was, would like to tell him that he's wrong and that brands have brought more good than harm, generally speaking. But even if I could convince myself of that, I doubt I could change the mind of such an ancient being. I guess we can't ask them to see the world through our eyes, just as I can't see the world through yours, no matter what you do. All I can do is curse the gods. To tell you the truth, I don't know whether the gods are real or not, any more than you do. Maybe we needed to believe in them, to have someone to hate for what was happening to us. It was more comforting to think that they hated us rather than to believe that they were turning a deaf ear to our pleas. But maybe there's no one to hate. Maybe all this evil only comes from us. This is all way too big for me. I'm disappointed I've already had to face more than I should. I'm not ready to question the existence of the gods themselves. Yet this is only a tiny part of what I have to bear. But I understand I won't ask anything more of you. So it's over? I wish it were, but it's never over, as long as there's a breath. It's quite likely that he understands that sentence every differently. It's quite likely that he understands that sentence very differently from me, and I can't blame him. Now what? You can go on with your life and hope that our paths cross as late as possible. But we'll meet again someday, that's a certainty. I swallow when I understand what he means, then nod silently. There's no thanks to give, no goodbyes to say. All that's left is a void this conversation has left in me. Then I awaken at Vekad's side and my life takes on a renewed purpose. Looking around, I realize we're back in the tent at the camp of Korex, but the priest is no longer there. The stag wakes up shortly afterwards and cracks his shoulders before looking at me, blinking several times. Was everything we went through. It was real, yes, no doubt about it. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do now, so I step out of the tent so I can take a deep breath and I realize it's daylight outside. A moment later, Vekad joins me and puts a hand on my shoulder. How will you feel about living out there with me? We've got a cabin to build not far from a village, since you want your audience. I have to admit, I didn't think we'd be broaching the subject so quickly. But how can I refuse Vekad's discussion now that he really knows what he wants? I like the idea, but don't you think we should go back to Phosphane to explain the whole situation to them? I wish I could see a cat again, and at least one last time. You know we're probably deserters in the eyes of the kingdom now. That kind of thing isn't forgiven here. Plus it means I'll have to explain what I did to the Vekadian caravan. I doubt they'll believe half of what we saw in there. It's true that our escapade was eventful, and that's putting it mildly. Then the fear gnaws at me deep inside. If the kingdom considers me a traitor, I'll surely be hunted down everywhere. Will I really find peace out here? But at the same time, it's a dream come true to finally be able to settle down and stop thinking about everything that's happened to me. Then I guess we'll just have to run off into the woods, you and me. Before I can think any more bad thoughts, the stag takes me by the hand and pulls me along with him while giving me a beaming smile. I know a place far to the east. We should be safe there, and the locals don't really have much contact with the outside world, so we shouldn't have any problems. Obviously, he's already thought of everything. I hope they'll like my songs. I'm sure they will. Then the two of us, hand in hand, drift off towards the horizon, not without a lot of remorse settling in my mind. To be continued. Hello, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this chapter. If you want more information about NeveN, feel free to follow us on Twitter. We also have a Discord allowing you to chat among community members. Finally, if you would like to support our project, we also have a Patreon that offers you a series of benefits such as bills 2 weeks in advance, but also unique stories about the characters of NeveN. If you like NeveN, please also feel free to rate us on Itch.io. It will help us a lot. Once again, a big thanks to all of you, and see you soon. Alright, so that was chapter 8 for Vekad. For Vekad, actually. Anyway, so the apparently we meet Brigit, and she has the power to read minds. She also has the power to put your mind into the mind of others, I guess. And so she put Eric into the mind of a Vekadian, then a leopard, and then a alligator, and then the stoat. Alright, so apparently the leopard was the one who drove Vekad to kill the caravan. And he seemed like a person who just loved killing people, but apparently he got what he deserved. He got killed himself. So it's because of Brigit that Vekad was able to be cured. Well, I don't know if he's cured, but she did helping him, be stable mentally, So he won't have this drive to, commit murder and all that. I mean, he has complete control of himself now. So it was good. So I guess in this part here, well, I don't know what's going on in Phosphane, if the monster still attacks Phosphane or not. But even though Eric and Vekad are gone, I don't know if they're still attacking Phosphane right now. But Anyway, I wonder how the Kings and Maybjorn and Vekad and everybody else is responding to all this with Eric and Vekad being gone. That's what I'm really waiting for. I mean, I've been paying attention to the story for Vekad so far ever since he left the kingdom, but I just can't help but wonder what the kingdom was thinking about it. You know, I wonder when we're going to see what everybody back in Frostfight is going through with Eric and Vekad being gone. I mean, hopefully it won't be too far until we find out. So that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed the update. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.